Hey guys, welcome back. Today is a very exciting day because we have my good friend and arborist Eduardo here, and he is going to be pruning some of our trees. You guys know we plant a lot of trees in our garden, and you guys always ask, or you always comment, that's too many trees. How do you do it? It's going to be out of control. And not really, because we have an Eduardo in our life who helps us keep our trees pruned and maintained. So today I thought it would be fun to ask him probably some common questions that I think us as gardeners have. And then I am going to set up some cameras and then let you guys watch him prune back some of our maples, some of our evergreens, and then we will also do a quick walkthrough once we're done and talk about what we did. And here's the thing, we always start out these appointments with him with walking around first and talking about what we want out of our trees. So Sergey and I do our preliminary walk first together. We look at the trees, we think, okay, do we want it bigger here? Do we want to thin this one out? And then when he arrives, we do our walkthrough with him and then we just jump right in. So let me go ahead and introduce you to Eduardo, and then we will ask him some questions and then watch him at work. It's truly masterful. I could just sit out here and watch him all day. It's like one of my favorite things to do and my favorite thing this time of year. Look at this big behemoth branch we cut off. Isn't that crazy? It's like a whole nother little tree.
Almost the size of you.
I know, it's so like big, but it's just part of the magic. You just have to trust the process.
It's funny, it looks so big, but actually show the trunk compared, or like,
Oh yes, look at this. Compared to my hand,
yeah.
look at this. Ow, it's spiky, this one. Look at this. Isn't that wild? But look at how beautiful that tree looks. It's just, again, trust the process. Okay, this is Eduardo.
Hola.
And he is a master and he makes our garden. He helps to make our garden look beautiful all the time. So I just have a few questions to ask. So one, when is the right time to prune trees? Is it now, or is it like, are we in the perfect time of the year to prune maples and evergreens? When is the perfect time? English or Espanol? ¿Qué quieres?
Español.
Español? Okay,
Ya,
okay,
es
okay.
más fácil.
Okay, and I'm gonna translate. He's gonna speak in Spanish, and I'm gonna translate as best as I can.
Ok. Para los árboles, para los maples, ahorita es más fácil porque puedes mirar cuáles ramas necesita el árbol y cuáles no. Como ves ahorita, estas ramas son de que nacieron el año pasado. Entonces, estas básicamente no las necesitas.
Okay.
No las necesitas. Entonces, cuando en verano o en primavera que ya tienen las hojas, está lleno de hojas, entonces ya no las puedes mirarlas ya.
Okay.
Pero como la gente que ya tiene mucho tiempo podando, pues ya, o sea, se le hace fácil también. Y ahorita pues también el árbol básicamente está como dormido, entonces lo podas ahorita y no lo afectas tanto. En primavera o verano está muy caliente, lo podas, entonces puedes afectar un poco el tronco del árbol. Si miras, si miran aquí, el árbol ya se está muriendo de aquí, porque no tiene, o sea, nada lo protege del sol. Entonces, si ves esa rama ya está muerta, porque ya la savia o los nutrientes del árbol ya no le llegan ya no lo protege nada, está seco.
Okay. ¿Se crees que va a sacar eso todo?
Sí, esta se va a cortar de aquí, pero esta tiene vida todavía.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
entonces, si ves aquí tiene también, pero sí básicamente se está como afectando ya al árbol. Entonces, por eso a veces no lo pone uno muy fuerte para que no le afecte, el sol no pegue directo al tronco y no vaya a afectar aquí la tecata del árbol, y es la que mantiene la savia y todos los nutrientes para que el árbol pueda tener vida.
Okay.
Entonces,
¿Y la evergreens?
¿También
al mismo tiempo estás bien ahorita?
El evergreen básicamente creo que todo el año lo puedes podar. Este es más fuerte al sol y entonces no lo afecta tanto. Y básicamente nomás como tenemos ese problema en los lazes, en los maples.
¿Ese tipo?
Sí, ese tipo. Y porque si lo ponen muy fuerte, realmente es lo que le afecta, que el sol pasa directo y quema la tecata del árbol, y es lo que
Y también con with the Shishigashira, ¿Es mismas cosas con todos los maples?
Sí, sí,
Ok.
básicamente sí. Los maples son un poquito delicados, básicamente,
Ok.
para... Y bueno, la gente dice, ¿por qué no los deja uno, no los dejas así naturales?
Ajá.
El problema es que si los dejan uno naturales, pasa otro problema,
Ah,
que el árbol se llena de hojas
ajá.
y de ramas y
Ajá.
la luz no entra en medio y se muere por dentro. Está
Ok.
verde por fuera, pero está muerto por dentro.
Ok. Entonces tienes que ser
Ya
like
tienes
balance.
ya un balance,
Ok.
ya un balance para que el árbol no dañar el árbol.
Ok.
Entonces, básicamente hay muchos estilos de podada. Mucha gente le puede gustar mi estilo, otros no les puede gustar, pero
Ujú.
básicamente lo que uno hace con esos árboles es disfrutar del árbol. En sí el árbol es muy hermoso, es uno de los,
Sí.
pero mm, hay gente que no le gusta el estilo de podada muy fuerte.
Ujú.
Hay clientes que dicen, no, dale fuerte.
Todo. Ok. ¿Qué quieres muy abierto?
Ya
Ok.
quiere, porque a veces también el árbol está afectando a ciertas plantas.
Ah, ok.
Entonces tienes que
Yeah.
reducirlo, entonces
Okay.
el árbol.
There's so much information. Okay. Okay. Okay.
So,
Okay.
pero básicamente, o sea, para podar lo puede hacer a cualquier
Okay.
tiempo. Recomiendo mucho en invierno, pero ah, a veces no, la gente, bueno, los podadores no tienen tiempo para venir cuando realmente, este árbol este día, o el árbol otro día. Entonces,
Okay.
vienes y puedes podar todo en un día y
Okay. We have a lot of trees.
ujú,
You know, I like a lot of trees.
ujú,
And a lot of people say it's too many trees.
ujú.
But you say it's okay because you prune them every year.
Ya.
So it's okay to have a lot of trees, right? Like the way you maintain that
Ujú.
is just by pruning it every year.
Tener muchos árboles es más mantenimiento del árbol. O
Mm-hmm.
sea, pero un árbol, una propiedad debe estar balanceada con tu propiedad. O sea, si a ti te gusta tener abierto, pues poner nada más unos cuantos árboles está bien, pero mantenerlos. Ah, hay varios estilos de jardines. Aquí tenemos diferentes tipos de... Oregon tiene diferentes tipos de árboles. Hay unos que son evergreen, otros que tumban la hoja. Entonces, un jardín para que se vea bonito, o sea, tienes que balancear. Tener unos que sean evergreen, esos siempre están verdes, están bonitos, mantenerlos limpios y se van a ver bonitos. Y tu casa se va a ver bonita.
Sí.
Si plantas nada más de los que tumban la hoja, entonces tu casa en invierno, en primavera y verano y otoño se va a ver bonita. Pero en invierno se va a
Nada.
ver nada.
Okay.
Entonces,
Tienes que tener
un balance, un
Okay.
balance para que tu casa sea como de oro.
Sí.
Yeah.
Do you have so our garden has a lot of trees.
Ajá.
Do most of the gardens you take care of, do they also have a lot of trees?
Sí,
Igualito yo? Okay.
sí, básicamente el estilo que me enseñaron a mí mis maestros es un estilo que se llama pues, Japan style, o sea, jardines japoneses. Y básicamente en un jardín japonés son muchas plantas.
Sí, okay.
Ya tienes un espacio, pones una planta, tienes otra planta.
Ajá.
Pero lo que tiene el estilo de japonés es que requiere mucho mantenimiento.
Okay.
O sea, tú puedes plantar muchas plantas, pero eso requiere mucha podada.
Okay.
Básicamente una vez al año o 2 veces al año. Si quieres tener perfecto tu jardín, 2 veces al año.
2 veces que tienes
Entonces,
que
ya,
hacer.
porque y si no, y eso pues obviamente es más dinero.
Okay.
Y es un poco, es caro pues venir a podar. O sea, estamos hablando de,
Okay.
entonces ese es otro
Otro
problema.
problema.
Entonces, básicamente uno planta según lo que uno puede mantener. Porque vamos a lo mismo, si uno planta muchas plantas y no las podas, al rato vas a tener un problema.
Okay. Sí.
Porque hay plantas que crecen poquito, hay plantas que crecen 1 pie, 2 pies al año, entonces
Okay.
vas a tener
Con
un
las
problema.
plantas que crecen mucho rápido, tienes que hacer 2 veces por
Sí,
año.
sí,
Okay.
sí.
Okay. Y fertilizer. Do you recommend fertilizer now after you prune or
Okay.
What do you recommend?
Una pregunta que casi realmente yo no, no uso. Bueno, a mí me pagan por venir a podar. Yo no me meto más en como fertilizante y eso. Yo no lo
uses?
hago. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about compost? Do you recommend compost?
Sí, porque el compost tiene más nutrientes para la raíz de raíces de los árboles. El problema del compost es que no luce mucho como el diferente, el Gen Black o diferentes, porque el compost es nada más como tierra.
Okay.
El otro tiene diferentes colores, entonces si tú quieres que tu casa se mire bonita, pues entonces tienes que elegir, o pones poquito compost y luego pones
Okay.
el bardas o diferentes Gen Black o cosas diferentes para que se vea más bonito tu jardín.
Do you recommend I fertilize new trees? Like, when we just we planted this one a couple years ago. Am I okay to fertilize it just to get it growing more? That's okay.
Yeah.
But bigger trees, you don't need it. You don't do it.
No,
Okay.
pero hay muchas compañías que ustedes pueden quizás llamar para que ellos vienen especialmente a sprayar. Entonces, si ven un árbol triste, o sea, pueden hablar con ellos y ellos tienen más experiencia que yo.
Okay.
Y ellos pueden recomendarles un fertilizante para que pueda, ya sea sprayado o puesto en la tierra.
Okay.
Y eso lo puede ayudar.
Okay. Me gusta Espoma. ¿Conoces Espoma Organic?
Oh, sí.
Me gusta esa compañía.
Yeah.
Okay. One more tree that I want to talk about. The Japanese maple is more of a weeping tree. We also have this Acer palmatum, green leaf Japanese maple.
Sí.
How do you prune this versus that? Because it seems that you like to keep these very open too. So what do you recommend if I'm a home gardener and I don't have Eduardo? What can I do to, if you look at this now, where does your mind go? Because this is also like our other maples.
Yeah.
This shape.
Yes.
So how do you shape something like this? What should we think about?
Okay, estos árboles, especialmente aquí hay un área donde puede crecer un poquito más. Entonces, lo único que se le hace es nada más como entresacarlo, que se mire abierto.
Okay.
Pero no lo podemos dejar crecer mucho tampoco, porque aquí hay espacio para crecer. Entonces, nomás sería como, si ven esas ramas, entonces esas ramas están aquí, pero aquí tenemos tenemos 2, 3 ramas. Entonces, necesitamos elegir una que se quieren quitar. Por ejemplo, esta ya está creciendo y está pegando con las otras. Entonces, tenemos esta, entonces podemos quitar toda esta de aquí, cortarla y dejar nada más esta.
Okay. Solamente quieres una, you only want one for a main branch
Yes,
usually?
Yeah.
Okay.
Ya, el problema es si no la cortamos esta rama, entonces van a interferir las dos. Entonces, ni una ni otra va a tener futuro.
Okay.
Entonces, otra cosa que tenemos que tomar en cuenta es, por ejemplo, aquí está el pasto. Entonces, también que cuando anden cortando con el mower, la rama no te vaya a pegar. Entonces, es otro. Entonces, todo tiene hay que decidir.
Yeah. So, it's funny because he's just talking about you have to consider so many things when you're pruning a tree. It's like
I heard about that lawnmower.
Yeah.
Yeah, that gets me all the time.
So I'm going to translate everything in just a second. But it's funny because these trees are the ones that we're constantly trying to keep open, especially in the center. And this can get bigger, and we'll talk about what Eduardo just said. But the main idea about these, when these are kind of young the way this one is, you want to make sure that you don't have two, they're almost 2 liters, and you only want to have one.
Only one, yeah.
Because if you have two, then there's not enough energy really for the both of them, and they're kind of competing all of the time. So I think you're going to remove this whole one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so just remove that
one?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not right now.
Yeah. Oh, so there he goes.
Yes.
No mercy. He's just going to do it.
Yes, that's
I think this would grow if I put it in a container? Or no? Too big? Too big?
Yeah.
Probably. You can take a lot of propagations from little seedlings. Those grow so fast, but I've never been able to root something like this. But I'm gonna keep it and put it in my kitchen island for decoration.
Yeah.
So, anyway.
So in the other is this branch is come back for the other side, so I don't need
You
this
don't
branch.
need that one.
So
Okay.
I cut here.
Okay. And something I notice about you, you cut everything very close, which I like. You don't cut far. You want to
Oh,
make sure that you're cutting close
yeah.
to the other branch, so it looks neat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The problem is that one is the is coming the branches here. So you cut here, so it's dead together for here.
Oh.
So it's the plant. You cut very flat, so it's not affected too much. That the next year is close.
Okay.
The
We're talking about the
Sí,
pine tree real quick.
si ven hay muchas ramas. So, hay 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So, son muchas ramas, entonces puedes cortar para disfrutar más el árbol. Tienes que decidir cuáles ramas vas a dejar.
Okay. So he's talking about how like this layer of the tree has already 6 branches to it. That's too many. So we're going to talk about like we have to decide which ones are we going to keep to try to keep it open and not too bushy, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Ya, so cortas ramas y ya tú puedes mirar el tronco y ver la rama. Entonces, eso es lo que queremos hacer con la podada que nosotros hacemos.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that is very interesting because you want to be able to see the trunk of the tree. So that is like one of the other things, because if you allow it to just continue growing, it's just going to have one shape and look like a ball.
Yes.
You know, and we want to keep it nice and open and airy and flowy. So, and what about the candles? You cut the candles on our Vanderwolf?
Yeah, los candles se cortan como el mayo, fines de mayo.
Mayo?
Yeah.
Okay.
Entonces, y es cuando salen, ya están en su esplendor y se cortan. Los candles, lo único que hace pues mantener el árbol pequeño, que no crezca.
Oh, okay.
Ya esa es la idea. Por ejemplo, este árbol no se cortaron los candles, entonces creció esto.
Okay.
Yeah. Entonces, si tú quieres mantener tu árbol bonito y una estructura bien, entonces cortar el kendo.
Okay.
Y ahí eso lo mantiene, que no crezca.
Okay.
Y se llena por dentro. Entonces, ya cuando lo podas tú, se estructura más la rama. Entonces, puedes disfrutar un poco más del árbol.
Okay, that is so interesting. So, we're talking about candle pruning, and these are the candles of our pines. So, I noticed that with our Vanderwolf, and I'll show you guys in a minute. He cut them last year and the year before, but we did it in May. So you want to wait till May time to do the candle pruning. And what that does, it maintains the size of the tree so it doesn't get so bulky and big. This is how you can keep some of those bigger trees from getting out of control. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Okay, so the candles we prune later. Okay, so you can see like this one, we didn't prune this one. And look at how big it got. Right?
Yes.
And then,
entonces cortas el kendo, entonces salen más ramas en medio o se llena.
When you prune the candles back, it's going to trigger that main branch to branch out even more and look fluffier.
Yeah.
Okay.
Y por ejemplo ya se lo hace así, entonces se empieza como a llenar una sola rama. Todo eso empieza a cubrir lo que cubren esas, cubren las nuevas ramas. Entonces es la idea de un...
The candle pruning.
Sí.
Okay.
Sí.
That's so interesting. Okay. Okay, so at the node. Okay, so it seems like you have to go, so you go down to the next node and you cut it there, and that's going to trigger more of them to grow.
Yeah, it's going more.
So you don't cut it here.
No.
You cut it down
It's the
here.
same the maple.
Same with the maple.
Si le cortas aquí, se va a secar hasta acá.
Okay, if you cut it here, this is all going to get dry.
Yeah.
And it'll just die.
Y cuando es curioso porque cuando en mayo lo puedes cortar aquí y no se seca.
But if you do it in May, it doesn't dry out. But if you do it now, it will.
Se seca hasta.
Huh, that's so interesting. Look at us learning together. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
He's probably like you children.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, cool. Well, I think we'll let Eduardo get back to his pruning. We will still set up our camera so you guys can see everything that he's doing. This tree used to be so full. Remember the first year you
Yes,
came?
yes.
Oh my gosh, he took so much of it. And we were like, wow, it was so beautiful. And while he's cutting this, I'm just gonna translate what we talked about with this tree. But you guys will see he's just gonna start taking all of these things out, all of these like wiggly and long, yeah, all of the suckers that have been growing from last year. And then we'll show you an after. Thank you so much,
Ya,
Eduardo.
de nada.
Okay, we are at the Vanderwolf. This is my favorite tree. It's my child. It's my baby. And Eduardo planted this, right? You were here when we planted this. And it,
Actually planted it.
I think he did. Don't give away my secrets, Sergey. I'm kidding. No, he did.
This is his baby, not your baby.
This is the baby I adopted. Anyway, so with this tree, it was really small when we planted it, and now it's gotten really big.
Tiene espacio para crecer,
Uh-huh.
ya,
Okay.
pero pero si lo dejan crecer es más trabajo para mantenerlo.
Okay.
Ya, entonces,
Okay.
para mí sería un buen nivel este. Y luego tiene una buena figura.
Sí.
No, no necesita básicamente mucho.
Okay. Are we gonna do candle pruning on this one in May or no? Do you think?
Sí, si lo quieren mantener como, se puede decir como pequeño y como en capas,
Okay.
sí se recomienda que se corten los kendos.
Okay.
Porque si no se cortan los kendos, se empieza a deformar el árbol.
Okay.
Ya, se mira natural y es un árbol así natural, se mira bonito en el color y todo. Pero si lo quieren más estructurado, entonces sí hay que cortar los kendos.
Okay.
Ya para que se mantengan como ramas individuales y como en capas.
Okay.
Ya.
En mayo, ¿no? Okay.
En mayo, ya. Sí,
Okay.
porque todo esto es todo lo que creció este año.
Sí.
Entonces, recuerdo que lo podía hace 3 años. Entonces, hace 3 años que no se ha podado.
Acá.
Entonces, fue 1 año, 2 años y ya. Entonces, cuando lo planté estaba a este tamaño.
Okay. So we're gonna just watch Eduardo prune this, and I think we're just gonna open it up a little bit, yeah?
Okay.
All right, it's the next day and I'm gonna walk you guys through. It's very windy and it's very sunny. So I just wanna quickly walk through and show you what Eduardo did so we can have a look to see how things are looking now that we've pruned everything back. Starting out with the maples, you can see that he took a lot of that new growth down. So we just pruned those back. This tree, we like to maintain it around this size because it is pretty close to the house. So again, if you look closely, you can see where we had all of the new growth. We just took that down to maintain its full size. So I think it looks really pretty and it doesn't have all of those like wild growing branches. And it's funny because he finished it yesterday and it kind of got late in the day and we were both out there working. He was pruning things, I was pruning things. So the next day I came out, which is today, and I'm just looking like, wow, everything just looks so tidy, so tight and pretty. I love it so much. With the smoke bush, we took it down as well. If you guys recall in our January garden tour, you probably saw this smoke bush. It was just growing a lot of long growths, upright growths, and that didn't look very good. So what we did is we took it down and I want to start training it to be more of a standard form. So I want it to look more like a tree. So that's why we took it back. It still has a little bit of its fuzzies here, but these just kind of fall off as the wind keeps blowing on them. But I also want to make sure that this doesn't get too wild and overcrowded in this space. Right here, our atlas is looking mighty beautiful, if I do say so myself. I like to keep this tree kind of structured, kind of small. We used to have a big branch going out that way, and actually this tree used to be completely turned around. And when I planted it, Eduardo said to me, "You planted it backwards." And I was like, okay, so we had to lift it up, shift it, and then it's leaning forward a bit because there's a lot of weight on this side, as you can see. So we're going to pull it back just a tad and continue mounding it up a bit so it doesn't lean forward so much. But this is the overall structure that I like for this atlas. And of course it is going to fill in and start growing more. But pruning it up this way, limbing it up a bit, allows me to plant things underneath it. So that is one of the reasons why I like to bring the branches on these types of tree up a little bit, because it gives you a little bit more room to play underneath. On the tree island, you can see the pine. We took quite a big piece off of it. You saw that piece in the beginning, that really tall piece that we took off. That was one of the tips there. So what that's going to do is that it's going to continue growing up. And now we have a defined leader on this side over here. So you can see we really opened it up. We did do a lot of candle pruning, and we talked about how it's good to do that in May. However, because we did take the candle pruning all the way back, it's okay to do it now. So you can see, so you can see like a little bit of the sap coming out. You'll see it more evidently on our Vanderwolf in just a minute, but we took it back, brought it in, tightened it up, and same with the Louis. The Louis pine is looking pretty good. We didn't do too much of it. It is pretty open right now, so we're gonna keep it this shape. Next year, we might not prune it as much, maybe just bring it down a little bit, but we'll see how it's starting to look next year. And same with the Emperor. Cleaned it up. You can see he took some of the crossing limbs and branches that were kind of going into the tree. So just keep it neat, keep it tight. And I think it looks really nice. Again, we cut off a lot of that new growth. So instead of being all spindly and coming out to like here, we brought it down. So now it gives it a better overall shape to the tree. With the 3 new dogwoods that we planted on the planting strip here, we just took a couple of little limbs, nothing big, but because these trees are so young, this is the time to start shaping them. That way you don't have to do heavy pruning later on. So these were similar to the ones over here. You can see these are much bigger. And so we just took these in a little bit. We don't really do a lot of pruning to these anymore. And really the main thing we've done to these trees is we topped it off just to, again, encourage it to grow out more and clean any of the side long branches that are going to be in our way when we're mowing the lawn and working in this planting area. Of course, we are going to remove all of this lawn anyway, but still we want to make sure we can access this space nicely. With the maple, I mean, what can I say? Look at how beautiful it looks.
It's probably the biggest job and the longest job.
Yeah, this is, Sergey's right. This is probably the biggest job that we always plan for, just because it does take so much craft and time to get it shaped the way that we want it. And it's funny because even after he's done, we'll come in and we'll say, okay, can we do a little bit here, or what do you think about this? But I do think the overall shape now looks good. With this branch here, we're just gonna keep an eye on it because like Eduardo was saying, there's a lot of light hitting this branch, and I think what happened, there could have been an opening there, and that sun just beating down on it probably has impacted it. So we'll just keep an eye on this tree in that area specifically. Hopefully it's going to do better. We went ahead and took this pine back a little bit too. Now you can start seeing through it a little bit better, which is nice. More layering on it. So it looks really nice. If I step back, you can really start to appreciate the shape of the trunk. One of the things I always talk about when you buy trees is pay attention to the curvature of the trunks. And you can see it starts out kind of straight here, it curves a little bit to the left, and it comes back to the right. And by having these layers, when you get closer to your trees and your gardens, you can start appreciating those shapes a little bit better. And even when you step back, you see that little motion in your tree, and I love that. And I think that's why it's so important to have a good arborist who knows what they're doing and pruning them. And one other thing I wanted to call out is we did talk about fertilizing. Eduardo doesn't fertilize, that's just not something that he does, but he knows that I do. So we will come in and fertilize the majority of our trees, except the ones that are very established. I don't really focus on those too much because we add compost anyway to the soil. But pretty soon here, we're gonna come in and start fertilizing our evergreens, our maples, our dogwoods, and we'll go through that whole process of how we're going to be doing that. And I'll share some really great secrets along the way. And finally up here, we just touched up this maple, this green leaf maple. Again, brought it in a little bit more, pruned back those 2 large branches that were coming out. So now we have one nice branch here that is going to leaf out beautifully. Again, we took those 2 branches off just to allow this one to get a little bit stronger, because that is a lot of weight on that main branch right there before it forked off. So overall, I think this tree looks a lot better. And we talked about keeping our trees open. You don't necessarily need to open your maples all the way up because they don't want a ton of light coming in, but it's about having like a cohesive shape to it. So you let light in, but you don't need it to be completely exposed, if that makes sense. The other thing that we did prune back a little bit are the branches coming towards the house, because we don't want this area to become too overgrown. sometimes when you have a ton of trees by your home and there's not a lot of airflow, that tends to cause a little bit of mildew. So by opening this up a little bit and just giving us a little bit of breathing space, especially because I do plant so heavily in terms of annuals over here, this allows more light to come in and not shade this area so much. I don't know, I just think the overall shape of this tree looks so great. Of course, I'm always like, oh, there's room over here. I can plant another tree over here. Sergey's like, no, we're not planting any more trees over here. No, I'm gonna take you guys to the back and we'll do a quick walkthrough to see how everything looks now. And this year we didn't actually do much. We touched up the witch hazel just a little bit to keep its size down a little bit. We did remove all of the suckers. Again, we're trying to get this to shape more into a standard form, but this is its natural growth and I actually think it looks beautiful. I just wanna bring it up a little bit more as it starts to grow. I want this branching to continue just a little bit higher. The one thing that bothers me about this is that the leaves are still on, and I'm not sure why. Sergey is saying, if you guys know why they're doing this, I'm not sure. I'm sure I could read about it and get into it because you guys know I like to nerd out on everything related to trees and shrubs and all of that. But it's just one of those things, and I asked Eduardo, I'm like, why is it doing this? He's like, I don't know. So it's like, okay. So not much change here. Our fruit trees, we are the ones that prune these. We're pretty particular about the way we like our figs and our persimmon and everything else. So the fruit trees is kind of our wheelhouse that we tackle. A little bit of pruning here on the emperor maple. The only difference with this one compared to the one in the front is if you guys look down, we keep the branching pretty low on this one. Do you see how it kind of forks off? We like that style. We don't want to limb this tree up. We want it to continue letting it grow low like this. Again, we just like that look. Our magnolia here, this is a Bracken's brown magnolia, and this is probably the most drastic change, I think, I would say, because we removed quite a few of the lower limbs. And here's why. I want this to shape up and to be a little bit more of a, again, standard form. It had a lot of low branches, which is fine, but look at all of this room now that I have down here to plant beautiful flowers or perennials. We can add more bulbs. So this really opens up the space. And now the seating area back here can be kind of tucked underneath this tree, which I actually think looks even more lovely. Before, we had it kind of over here off to the side because the branching was in the way and it was a little bit kind of a tight area. Now we're kind of tucked in underneath the tree, which I think is just so lovely. And Mom and I love to come out here in the summertime, have coffee out here in the morning. My stepdad probably used this little table more than anybody. He was out here every morning having coffee, talking to his family back in Brazil. So it's just a really sweet addition. And again, it really opens up this whole area to add a bunch of beautiful things. The other tree that we touched up a little bit is this Ruby Falls redbud. We just took a little bit of the branching here on the main trunk just to open it up a little bit, make sure it's not as full, because if you guys recall, if you saw, there's a bunch of leaves flying behind you. It's so pretty. Sorry, distracted squirrel moment. But anyways, before it was really full and it kind of lost its shape a little bit and it kind of just looked like cousin-it back here. So now by pruning this up a little bit, opens it up, adds a little bit of layers, and there are just tons of little buds everywhere. So I'm very curious to see how this is going to shape up when it's blooming and it leaves out. I just think it's going to look so much better than it did last year. The cypress we took back a little bit, not a ton, which, you know, now that I look at it, I kind of wish we would have taken a little bit more off of it just because it's still a little full and I kind of like it a little bit more open. But wait, Sergey has a thought that he wants to share. Wait, I want to hold it like an interview. Go ahead.
I feel so special. If you pay attention to like where the cuts are, he kind of tipped them off.
Yep.
You see, we had a lot of these kind of like spindly things running out, and it was really white. So he brought it closer, tighter in. But I don't want to speak on his behalf, but I think why he didn't open it up like he did that one year when I was young is because just the natural growth habit of the tree. If you pay attention, it looks a little empty. I don't want to say dead, but the inside dies back a little bit.
It does.
And when you layer it, you expose that I think, not so pleasant
Look
view.
of the tree.
So he
Yeah.
brought it tighter to make it, look, I guess, not like a big ball, but without exposing that kind of dieback.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. That's how they grow.
Yeah. And by cutting these the way that he did, it does add a little bit of layering into it and makes it look a little bit more shapely and not all one length. Kind of like your hair. When you layer your hair, it kind of gives it more dimension. Same thing with the tree. With the coral bark maple, we also cut that up quite a bit. Same thing like the green leaf maple in the front. Just prune back some of the new growth so it doesn't look so spindly and out of control like a wild hair. I think it looks nice. I think we have a little bit more shaping to do with this tree until we really start to see a lot of growth and really allow it to do its own thing. But so far it's looking very beautiful, and I just love how bright this bark is looking this year. And then this Shishigashira, we did prune it a little bit, not too much, because we're at that stage now where we're happy with the overall shape of it, but now we want it to grow. And this was actually one of the very first trees that we planted after we graded and leveled this backyard. There was nothing back here. And this was like the first tree Sergey and I planted, and it felt so special. We used to have an old white oak here, and we took that down. That was a massive, massive tree. We took it down, and we know you're not supposed to plant trees above tree stumps, but we broke the rule and we did it anyway. I will say, when we were cutting this tree down, I was talking to the tree guys that were here grinding down the stump, and I told him that I was going to plant a tree here, and he's like, well, that's probably not a great idea. And I already knew that, but he did say, but I have had a lot of people have success with maples. And I was like, well, perfect, because it's going to be a maple that goes up there. So it was kind of a perfect outcome for this space. And again, one of our prized trees is this Shishigashira maple here. And finally, the last tree that we took in is the Vanderwolf, my little baby, and it's looking great. Again, we opted out to actually prune the candles back right now, and I'm just gonna keep an eye on it. It should be fine, because I didn't want to cut it halfway and then have to redo it in May. I just wanted to do it now. So we brought it in, added a ton of layers by opening it up a little bit. We didn't take too many of the main branches out, which I'm very happy about. And next year, I don't plan on touching much on this tree. I really want to get it full now, allow it to grow more. Like Eduardo said, it has plenty of space to grow in, or grow out, I mean. So I am going to just allow it to do its thing the next couple of years and see how it looks. I might come in myself and just do a little bit of candle pruning here and there, just to keep the overall shape and make sure it doesn't get too wide, because I don't want it to go into the path that we're going to put over here that goes out to the bench. But overall, she is a beauty. Let me just step out for you guys to see her in her whole glory. Yeah, I was like, ooh, I don't know if I wanted to take that much, but he was like, it's okay, it's gonna grow. And I'm like, I know. I always get worried when we prune some of our trees, because sometimes he'll just go, go, go. And I'm like, okay, you took 10, I wanted 5 out, but that's fine. But he knows what he's doing, and I trust him completely. So I've never been disappointed with his work. So I'm very excited for this next year and the year after to see how he starts filling in even more. And I'm just so happy with this tree. And you guys saw earlier, I posted a picture of when we planted it, and I just can't believe this tree was about my height, and we planted it back in 2021, 22, 21, I think. It'll be on the video. And look at it now. It's such a stunner. I just want to give it a hug. Hug, tree hugger. All right, guys, well, that will do it for today's video. I hope this was insightful. Again, Eduardo is a wealth of knowledge. I hope this is a video you can save and reference back when you're getting ready to prune your trees, or if you want to hire an arborist. Now you kind of know what they do and what their role is in your garden and part of your team. I always say you have to have tools in a toolbox. And it's also nice to have people in a toolbox that you can use and learn from. No, it's true. That's just like one of the analogies I use. And so for me, it's always going to be important to have an arborist in my toolbox, because I am going to lean on them whenever I have questions, or if I'm thinking kind of crazy and out of control. They will reel me back in when I need to. But at the end of the day though, I will say, no matter how much of an expert you are, if I don't like something or if I want to do it my way, I'm still going to do it my way, which it's kind of cheeky of me. But I always like to listen to the experts first so I can really think about it. And then if I want to experiment, I'm going to experiment anyway. But again, with Eduardo, he's just so brilliant in what he does that I, again, trust him completely. And luckily we have such a good working relationship that it works out perfect. So anyways, thank you guys so much for watching today's video and hanging out with us in my garden today, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.